Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, elenoa.mccabe. I'm an IFBB bikini pro and an online health and fitness coach. And today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Olympia, specifically the bikini division. So I'm sorry. I know that I have listeners that follow all of the different divisions, and I do too. I watched as much of the Olympia as I possibly could. It was a very long show. But specifically today, I'm just going to go through the bikini division and the top 10, specifically what I noticed, and just give kind of my thoughts and feedback. I have been seeing a lot of that recently, which always happens. Like the Olympia is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, so it's what we look forward to all year round. So just knowing that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I noticed, what caught my eye, and both from a coach's perspective and then also an athlete's perspective. So the first thing really that I wanted to address is for all of the people out there who don't understand why Maureen won. And I've been seeing a lot of this discourse online, like Instagram, YouTube, just everywhere. People are saying, I don't understand why she won. I don't get it. She's too soft. She's not conditioned. She doesn't represent bikini. And I understand how fun it is to sit on the sidelines and sit in the audience and, root for your favorite competitor, and really just be able to talk shit. But I said some of the comments that I saw, like these people genuinely don't know why she won. And I'll just say, like, I can go back into my group chat messages. So when the Bikini Olympia came on, I was like live tweeting it with my friends, like we were going back and forth. And I specifically remember, like in first looks, when I saw Maureen in that green suit, I was just like, oh my gosh, like she is on. Her tan was perfect. Her suit was perfect. Her swagger, like she owned that stage. And then when she came out for her individual, I was like, she looks amazing. Like, I don't think that the live stream quality was the best, but I think that you could see she was in condition. Her core was conditioned. She had definition on her legs, in her glutes, like her hamstring tie-ins. They're there. They're not rock hard. They're not etched, but that's not necessarily what they're looking for. And they've as much as said that. Like the judges have come out and said, like, we don't want these etched in, like deeply striated or deeply etched in hamstrings or glute tie-ins. In fact, some of the women that had more of that harder look, they got uh, pinged for that. What's the word? um, it's not pinged, but it's basically like some of the women that I saw that were on the harder side that had more of the etched in tie-ins, more of the hard striated glutes and hamstrings, like the hard look that maybe they've been rewarding at some pro shows this year. Those girls were not rewarded for that at the Olympia at all. And I also just want to say, like, it's very difficult if you're not there in person to judge conditioning because on a camera, there's so many different factors that are going to show you like hardness, graininess, like the lighting, the shadows, um, just so many different things. And the camera angles, right? Like an iPhone camera versus like a real camera. Um, I just think that there's so much variation between all of that that you really can't judge solely off of pictures, solely off of videos, solely off of the live stream. Um, and I know obviously not all of us can make it to the Olympia and like be there in person, but you really can't judge if you weren't there in person, right? So that's the other caveat that I do want to say because obviously I wasn't there in person, but I will say like from the jump when Maureen walked out for the first time, when I saw her on that stage, I was like, oh yeah, like she clearly is, she's on. Like her confidence is on, her stage presence, her whole look, excuse me, all of it was so put together. She stood out to me in that way. And there's very few women on the Olympia stage this year that I think had that confidence and that swagger about them, where they were on that stage and you knew like, oh yeah, like she wants to be there. She loves being up there. She's performing. She's giving us a performance. Because that's the other part of bikini that does make it very difficult. And everybody always says like, oh, it's such a subjective sport. It's so subjective. Like, yes, it is absolutely subjective, but the judges are very clear on the criteria. And that's what I want to hammer in today is the criteria is not changing. It's never changed. The sport continues to evolve and the physiques that they're rewarding are evolving, yes, but the actual written set in stone criteria has not changed. If you go on NPC News Online and you look up bikini criteria for NPC and IFBB, it's the same as it was since the division was incepted, right? They say what they want is balance, symmetry, conditioning, muscularity, and then proper posing presentation. And that's where it starts to come in with the subjectiveness, right? Because the way that you pose, the way that you present your physique, it's very individual to you, or it can be. And I think as an amateur, because I know like a lot of different people, they do listen to this podcast. And so I don't want to, I guess, like leave you out, but I also don't want to be too generalized. So I'll give different disclaimers here. But with the NPC, with amateur competitors, your posing and presentation on a local level can give you an edge up, but it's not necessarily going to hurt you. And what I mean by that is I have seen on the local level on NPC stages, women who don't know how to properly pose their physique in the best way possible to fit the bikini criteria still win. When you get to the national level, posing starts to really matter. When you get to the pro level, absolutely, posing matters. Like it makes a huge difference. But on the NPC level, posing is one of those things that is within your control as an athlete. You know how much you practice. You know how much time you put into the craft. You can hire different posing coaches. You can really study different posing videos, figure out what poses fit best for your physique in order to make your physique the best fit for the criteria. So the undercurrent of all of this is that you have to still adhere to the criteria, right? So what I would say is like for bikini girls in the NPC, posing is important, yes, but that shouldn't be your sole focus. Your focus as an NPC competitor should be building enough muscle mass so that you are competitive at the next levels. You have to have that foundation of muscle, and muscle building takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. You can't rush it. Sure, you can take, enhancements. You can go into a dirty bulk surplus, eat a bunch of calories, lift heavy, hit PRs. Like you can definitely push the envelope, but at a certain point, muscle building still takes time. So you can't rush that. So in the NPC, if I had one piece of advice to give to all of my NPC girlies out there, spend the time putting on the muscle. Don't worry about your body fat levels. Don't worry about staying lean year round. Don't worry about, meticulously posing every single day. Of course, posing's important. Don't get me wrong, but your focus needs to be building that foundation of muscle because that is part of the criteria, right? They want to see rounded delts. They want to see a tight core. They want to see round glutes and hamstrings. They specifically say in the criteria, rounded glutes. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about. Like the glutes of IFBB pros like Amy, like Maureen, like Laura Lee. Those glutes took time, effort, progressive overload, not being afraid to go hard in the gym to figure out what exercises work best for you. And not just like kickbacks and abductors, right? Like do the compound lifts, squats, RDLs, hip thrusts. Building that muscle tissue and focusing on that first is what's going to put you ahead versus, putting all of your eggs into the posing basket. That's all that I'm really getting at here. Before I get too far off track, back to the Olympia. So I think the reason why Maureen won is because she was the most confident on that stage that day. When I looked at Ashley Walser, when I looked at Amy, when I looked at Laura Lee, when I looked at Jazzy, when I looked at Ashlyn, Ariana Brothers, Evie, yes, they had that it factor. They had that like beauty and the grace and the poise and the like classiness that you look for, right? But there was that missing element of I'm the winner, like the confidence. Even when Laura Lee came out, it looked like she was just going through the motions. Like her posing routine from last year to this year, completely different. And I think that it comes down to like a mental thing, because when you know that your body isn't where it needs to be or you're not happy with what you're showcasing, like I feel like that, of course, is going to take a hit to your confidence. But when you're on that stage, if you can fake it, if you can turn that charm on, turn that confidence on, go out there and really just give it your all and give that performance, I do think that that makes a difference. And I really think that that's why they gave the win to Maureen over Jazzy, over Ashlyn. So we can actually dive a little bit deeper into it. And again, all of this is just like my opinion and what I saw as a coach. But I will say from the jump, when I saw Maureen, when I saw Jazzy, when I saw Evie, and when I saw Maria Acosta, they really caught my eyes. And then I remember I was talking with Emily, and we were going back and forth. Like I was like, oh my gosh, do you see this girl? Do you see this girl? Do you see this girl? And I'll even scroll back through our messages, right? So I was like, are you watching right now? Yeah. So Saturday, October 11th, please tell me you're watching right now. And then I said, Maureen looks fire. That was at 3:41. So the very first thing that I said to her, Maureen looks fire. And then I said, Evie looks fire. And I said, Deanna Dang looks pretty good here. And then Jazzy and Green. Green is this year's color, it looks like. And then as we kept going, I liked Alice, I liked Lacey, um, I liked Tiana, the Victoria girl that got 15th. I was like, she looks like a Victoria's Secret model. She looks tall and muscular. She looks great. So she also very much stood out to me. Um, and then I asked thoughts on Amy, and I feel like Amy's posing, she looked a little hesitant. She wasn't like her normal self. When I see Amy and she's on, like she's one of those girls that you can't look away from. Her physique is incredible. I think Amy's got one of my favorite pro physiques ever, really. But I I was just like that posing, it was slightly off. Um and then Ashley Kaltwasser, I thought that her glutes looked a little flat. I said Ashlyn looks good. I did think Ashlyn's hair, we could have fixed. And if you look at the back pose comparisons, I actually, from Ashlyn to Maureen, I like Maureen's back pose better than Ashlyn's because of the way that she positions her arms and her shoulders. So I wish I could pull it up right here, but just if you're by a computer, if you're on your phone, like look up Maureen and Ashlyn's back poses. And what I noticed was with Ashlyn, I don't know if she's like pinching her shoulders together or like I don't really know what she's trying to do. I really wish I could show you guys this because I pulled it up. Not me having the pictures on my phone. Um, you probably can't see that at all, can you? Oh, maybe you can. Okay, sorry. If you're driving or if you're just or you're just listening, you're not going to get this. But if you look, so obviously there's Maureen and there's Ashlyn. Ashlyn, yeah, you could barely see that. Sorry, guys. But why I like Maureen's back pose more than Ashlyn's is the way that her arms are positioned and how she's showcasing her delts. So when Maureen's in her back pose, it looks effortless. And that's what you're always trying to do in bikini is when you're in your poses, you want it to look effortless. You don't want to look like you're trying too hard, even if you are. And we all know, like, you might be standing on that stage breaking your back, but it needs to look like you're just chilling. And so when I look at these two back poses side by side, if you look at Maureen's flow and structure of her physique, her delts are nice and popped from the back. She's got a small waist. Her hair is tapered perfectly into that V. Her glutes are nice and full. Upper glutes, I think genetically, they give a little bit of a square, but they're not squared off. They just look fuller compared to Ashlyn's. And then I don't know what people are talking about saying she's soft. Like she is not soft. she has hamstring tie-ins. They're not etched in, but they're there. Like, she's in perfect bikini conditioning, in my opinion. I thought Ashlyn was a little bit hard from the back, and then also Ashlyn's quads are a little bit overpowering. I think if she just relaxed her knees, instead of pushing her feet out like that, have her feet go straight back, slight bend in those knees, bring those shins back, that would be perfect. Her quads would be hidden. She'd still get a nice glute shape from that. And then also with Ashlyn's delts in her upper body, to me, it just looks like she's trying. Like, it looks like she's pushing really hard. And like I said, with bikini, I feel like when you're hitting those poses, it needs to look effortless. Um, and this is all just my opinion, by the way. I know I've said that, but some other things to note with the Olympia. So Laura Lee, let's talk about Laura Lee, the dark horse, the elephant in the room, if you will. I think that they were really generous with Laura Lee's placing. I'm not going to lie. If Laura Lee wasn't Laura Lee and she wasn't the defending champion, I don't think she would have been in the top 10. I don't know what happened with her physique, but she was incredibly too soft. Like, if you want to talk about too soft, she was soft from the back, 100%. Like, her back pose, there was no detail. Glutes are round, sure, but they almost looked flat. Like, we know that Laura Lee has glutes. The Laura Lee that won the Chicago Pro, you guys know what I'm talking about. The Chicago Pro Laura Lee with the glutes that were 5D in your face, massive. Like, we know that she has glutes. Where did they go? What happened? And something that I've been hearing that I do tend to agree with is she won last year, right? If you win the title and the judges do not tell you to change anything, like they don't tell you to make any major changes, why would you do something different? And I remember, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and like talk shit. Like, Laura Lee is one of my favorite competitors. I think the way that she trains is how every NPC bikini competitor should train. Because that's how you build muscle. Like, that's how you build the muscle and the shape. When the way she used to train 2-3 years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago in her early vlogs, like, she goes hard. She does not hold back. She pushes her limits. I genuinely believe that that is how you build the physique that's going to win. So I'm a big Laura Lee fan. I don't want anybody to get that twisted. I just think this was absolutely not her best, and I'm really confused as to what the plan was or why they decided to do what they did. I also wonder if there's potentially something going on behind the scenes, like in her personal life, or maybe like, I don't know. Like, I wonder if there's something else going on, because to me, it looks like her body was watery and flat. She wasn't in proper conditioning. We know that she has the muscularity. I don't think it's a muscularity issue. I think it comes down to conditioning. And I think with conditioning, especially with Laura Lee, her body's so finicky that I wonder if there was like stress, if there was maybe she got her period and then something happened. Maybe with travel, something happened. Maybe like with food, something happened. It seems like something in peak week or even like 2 weeks out must have gone wrong. And then they tried something like different to try and save it. Because by all means, in her vlogs, like leading up to the Olympia, she looked great. She looked like she was in conditioning, or in proper condition. So I don't know. I'm sure she'll have vlogs that come out later. And typically this is what I see. Like, and I have a lot of empathy for her, because I can't imagine what it feels like to go from being the champion, the Miss Bikini Olympia, to, placing 6th. Like, that is a really difficult placing. And at the same time, like, as much as we all say, like, your placing doesn't define you, and like the placing doesn't matter, it's the journey and the process. That is 100% true. And also, it can still be really painful. It can still be really disappointing. It can still suck to go from, placing here to placing down here. So I completely, really empathize with where her headspace must be at. Like for me, I would want to crawl in a hole and not come out for a few months. But it seems like she has been really active on her social media. She's been responding to fans on YouTube, on her vlogs. Like she's still coming out with content. So to me, I think that that shows like a lot of her resilience and a lot of her just her mindset of knowing that like, hey, this placing and like this show, it wasn't my best, but it doesn't define me. And so I have a lot of admiration for that because I can't imagine like what that must be like to showcase a physique that is not your best at the freaking Olympia. Um, but I do think there was something there that went wrong. And I think her placing 6 was very generous of the judges because her physique, when I saw it, I was just like, ooh, what happened here? Some of the breakouts that I noticed. So I guess let me talk a little bit about Ashlyn and Jasmine and Amy and Ashley. So obviously Maureen won. I love that. I don't have an issue with it. I think that Maureen is a beautiful ambassador for the sport. I think that her muscle it's something that you can look at and be like, yes, I want to look like that, or yes, I can achieve that. And at the end of the day, that's what bikini was designed to be. That's what it was like brought in to do. Was bikini was meant to be the division where an everyday woman can look at a bikini competitor and say, oh yeah, like I want to do that. I could look like that. And I do think the division is evolving and we're getting to put on more muscle onto our frames, but that's exciting. And I also think the judges know what they're doing. They are not going to let it get to a point where it's mini wellness or mini figure. Like there's still very clear distinctions, especially at the top level between competitors. Obviously, from the Olympia to pro shows, to national shows, to regional shows, to local shows. Like obviously there's going to be some variance in there. America versus Europe versus other parts of the world. Like yes, there's going to be variance in the judging, but I think overall it is very clear where the division lies and what they're looking for. And that's just my opinion. So I love that Maureen won. Ashlyn. So I think that this is one of the best Ashlyns that we've seen, but I actually really liked her look when she won. I want to say it was Texas. It was Ashlyn versus Issa, I believe, and Ashlyn came away with the win. And her physique was so bubbly, so full. Her presentation was amazing. Um, that was one of my favorite Ashlyn looks. This Ashlyn look, I think that they've streamlined and they've brought her, because she is pretty dense, but they've brought her down a little bit. And it also doesn't help because I know that she's a shorter competitor. So I feel like with shorter competitors, the more muscle they have, the more stocky they do tend to look. So I get that. But it looks like she's streamlined. I would just say there's some posing things. When she walks to the back, and I have this problem too, so I always spot it a mile away on everybody else because it's like that's what I look at when I do my back walk. But the upper glute, so the glute med, when you're doing your walk to the back, if you put too much weight on the front of your foot, your glute med might have that little ripple. And it shows the judges that your glutes aren't as full as they look in your back pose. So I think Ashlyn's walk to the back, she needs to focus a little bit more on keeping her weight evenly distributed and really keeping that glute med as full and up as possible in the walk. And then also with her quads, like in the back pose specifically, it looks like, to me, her quads are just a little bit overpowering, just a tiny bit. Jazzy, so I'll be honest, I would have had Jazzy in second over Ashlyn, but that also might just be bias. So that might just be bias, calling myself out. I love Jasmine. I actually had her as a posing coach 5 years ago. It's been a long time, but she was one of the first ever posing coaches that I ever hired. And her attention to detail with posing is incredible. I love working with Jazzy. I think her posing is definitely one of her strong suits. Her front pose is, in my opinion, almost flawless. I do think with her physique, we need a little bit more lat. so that she doesn't have to pose as big. But she is also, I think she's 5'5" or 5'6". Her and I are about the same height. And so I think the taller that you get, the more that you tend to want to pose bigger because you're taller, so you want to fill that out. I think for her, if she just has a little bit more lat, she won't have to pose as big and her posing will look just a little bit more relaxed. Again, it comes down to how effortless can you look sitting in your poses. And we all know as competitors, it is not effortless. That thing, it takes so much energy. Sorry, excuse me. I've been yapping. So I think with Jazzy, it's just like little refinements to her physique, but I'm really excited for her because it looks like she's found a coach and a team and a method that really, really works for her. And I wouldn't be surprised if she was in the mix for Miss Bikini Olympia someday, very soon. Amy. So I love Amy. I think that Amy, hands down, has the best glutes in the league. They're dense. When she walks, there's no drop, there's no movement. Like, that is pure muscle. That woman has built a shelf, for real. When it comes to Amy, I think that there's a mental component. Like, if she doesn't feel like she's 100% on, I feel like it translates in her posing. And you end up feeling it. Like, you're like, oh, she's not as confident or she's a little bit hesitant. That's really all that I noticed from Amy. I was really, really impressed by just her whole look. I do think that we've seen her better. I think that we've seen her a little bit more bubbly and popped, but I also think that it's so difficult to nail the look for Olympia as a bikini athlete because of how long you have to wait. Like, you might go on stage first for first looks, and then you have an hour before you do your individual routine, and then you have an hour before comparisons. So I understand, like, I think the girls, a lot of them weren't 100% on when it came down to the actual comparisons and call outs. Whereas if the show is smaller and there's less time in between, I do think that like these athletes peaked would be impossible to judge. Like, it would just be so hard. Ashley Kaltwasser, I mean, she's always in the mix. Again, I don't dislike Ashley, but she's not one of my favorites. I think she's incredible. I think the amount of pro shows that she's won is incredible. And I admire her tenacity. I admire her dedication. I think she's a great ambassador for the sport. Physique-wise, I don't think that she's my favorite, like just from an aesthetic perspective. And this is 100% like my bias. Like, this is just my opinion. But I think Ashley looks better tighter. And they tried to bring her in full, but then she was also a little flat. So I don't know if she was behind in her prep. I'm not really sure. I haven't watched any of her like more recent videos, but I think something went wrong with her peak because she just seems slightly off with like her abdomen and then with her tie-ins. I have seen her glutes and her tie-ins look a lot fuller and more bubbly. So I was a little bit confused. Like, when she turned around in her back pose, when they were doing comparisons, I was just a little thrown off. Evie really stood out to me. She's beautiful, beautiful girl. I know she's working with James now, and he's got her posing fixed, bro. Like, so I think Evie competes a lot overseas, like in Europe. She does the Europe circuit, and I remember the way she used to pose was just kind of all over the place. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not laughing like at her. I'm just like laughing because I remember seeing like, I think she like did like an arm wave, and she would do all of these little extra things in her posing routine, but then wouldn't nail like her front pose. And I think that there's like something to be said for like, hey, like, let's nail your front pose and nail your back pose because those are the mandatory poses in bikini, and then we can add some flair. But I know James, he runs a strict program. Team Atlas, like all of his girls, they never miss on their posing. So she's definitely come a long way with that. And like, her overall look was just beautiful. Like, her hair, her makeup, her suit, her posing, like everything was just on. And I definitely noticed that right away. Vanya, she got 8th. a little bit disappointed, but I think she had a back injury. So I'm not going to go into it too much. I think Vanya is one of the best posers in the league. She's absolutely beautiful with her posing, but I just don't think that this Olympia was her best, obviously, because it sounds like she had a pretty like severe back injury. And then ninth was Maria Acosta. Her physique is incredible. She's a little dynamite. Like I think Maria is beautiful. I think she has what it takes to get up into those top spots. There's just a few things as far as like her actual physique goes that I think she could improve on. A little bit more fullness in the upper glutes, probably a little bit more like lat and delt, but like tiny, like the tiniest little bit. Like that's just me being nitpicky. I think she's definitely one to watch though. And then Ariana Brothers, she got 10th. I've always thought that she was just absolutely beautiful. Like whenever Ariana is on stage and she's posing, you like can't look away. She's one of those ones that's very mesmerizing. And I think she's only going to continue to get better. So I'm excited to see how the rest of this next upcoming season goes for them. But that's the top 10. And I did call out some of the women that I saw. So that Victoria girl, from what I know, she placed 15th. She went pro this last year. So that's a pretty quick rise to the top. Very reminiscent of my friend Jordan Fisher. She had a very similar journey, I feel like. Like Jordan did a show in Texas. And then I think she did 2 shows in Texas and she ended up winning the overall. And then she went to nationals and Jordan and I turned pro at nationals in 2021 with Brittany Gillespie, who I also adore. And then Jordan went on to win the Dallas Pro and go to the Olympia. So it's like just boop, 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 boop. Like whenever I see women like that, like Jordan, like Victoria, who have that like quick rise, it just, I love to see it. It makes this sport really exciting because you genuinely like never know. Like you don't know what you could do, what you could achieve. Like, and for me and I guess let me take a step back. Like for me as a coach, I kind of look at that as like every athlete that I get the pleasure of working with, like I could take them to their first show and they could just take off. Like I think every athlete, they have it in them if they gave this 100% to have that sort of success, right? And it's very rare to see, very, very rare because bodybuilding is becoming more and more competitive, but it does give it it just gives like that excitement because you're like, oh, you never know what could happen. Like you genuinely never know. And I do think like, obviously genetics plays a huge role in this as well. Like you can't discount the genetic factor in bodybuilding, but I do think seeing that it's just really exciting to root for. Trying to think who else I wanted to like touch on. I mean, I think that that's it, really. The Olympia was very surprising in that I don't think any of us predicted that Laura Lee wouldn't win. Like, I think we all assumed that, like, if she brought what she brought last year, and even made, like, 0.1% improvement, that, like, it would be her show. So I think that was, like, a really big surprise for a lot of people. I think having Maureen win was something different, but I agree with it. Like, I don't disagree with the decision. I think that she's absolutely a beautiful representation of the bikini criteria. She has shape, balance, symmetry, muscularity, and conditioning. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how 2026 goes. I know today that I'm recording, the Hurricane Pro was today, the Mexico Pro. So there's still shows going on the back half of 2025 that can help these women get qualified for 2026. With the new rules, I am curious to see how that affects next year's Olympia, whether it is going to make it a much smaller show. But I would love to hear your guys' opinions, thoughts, questions, anything like that. So in the comments below, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts, or if you want to DM me on Instagram, I would love to chat about it. Like, this is my passion. If you don't agree with me, if you do agree with me, I want to hear about it. But thank you guys for listening to this one. I appreciate y'all, and I will catch you on the next episode. Like, share, and subscribe if this episode helped you, or if you think that a friend would be interested in it, send it to them. It really helps me out. But yeah, until next time, I will catch you guys on the next episode. Stay relentless.